The fluorescent lights in the station kitchen hummed low, casting pale shadows across the linoleum floor. Marcus Cole sat alone at the steel table, both hands wrapped around a ceramic mug that had long gone cold. The coffee inside was untouched. He wasn't drinking it for the caffeine. He just needed something to hold. Outside the window, the sky was still black. 4:50 in the morning, 10 minutes until his 24-hour shift officially ended. The station was quiet. Engine 7 sat in the bay, washed and restocked from the last call. A kitchen fire on Delancey Street. No injuries, no drama, the kind of call that didn't follow you home. Marcus preferred those. He heard footsteps before he saw them, soft, hesitant, the sound of someone who wasn't sure if they should interrupt. Terence Davis appeared in the doorway. 24 years old. 6 months out of the academy. Good instincts, but still learning how to carry the weight of the job without letting it crush him. "Hey Cole, you got a minute?" Marcus nodded toward the chair across from him. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. Terence sat down slowly, rubbing his palms against his uniform pants. "That call last Tuesday, the one on Miller Avenue." Marcus waited. "The guy didn't make it. Cardiac arrest. I ran the protocol exactly like I was trained. But," Terence's voice cracked, "I keep thinking I missed something." The room was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Marcus took a breath, let it out slowly. "You ran the protocol?" "Yeah. Then you did your job, but he still died." Marcus looked at him, not with pity, not with distance, just with understanding. Some of them do. That's the part no one tells you. You can do everything right. Every compression, every shock, every second counted, and still lose them. The job isn't about saving everyone, it's about showing up anyway, every time. Terence stared at the table, his jaw tight, his eyes wet but refusing to spill. "How do you carry it?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He turned the mug in his hands once, twice. "You don't carry it, you set it down. Not because it doesn't matter, but because the next call does, and the one after that. You hold on to the ones you save, let the rest teach you. That's all you can do." Terence nodded slowly. He didn't look healed, but he looked like he could breathe again. "Thanks, Cole." Marcus gave a single nod. Terence stood, hesitated, then walked out. The kitchen returned to silence. Marcus rose from his chair and walked to the locker room. The metal door of his locker opened with a familiar creak inside. A clean uniform folded tight, a pair of worn boots, a faded photograph taped to the back wall, 4 men in desert fatigues, arms over each other's shoulders, smiling against a sun-bleached sky. Tucked behind the photograph, almost invisible, a chain of dog tags caught the light. Marcus didn't touch them. He never did. He reached for his jacket. His shift was over. Then the alarm split the air. 3 long tones. The dispatch voice crackled through the station speakers. "Engine 7, Ladder 7, respond to structure fire. Residential 4127 Oakmont Drive." Reports of a child trapped on the 2nd floor. Marcus was already moving. His jacket dropped back into the locker. His boots hit the bay floor before the second sentence finished. He climbed into the engine beside Terence, who was still pulling on his coat. The doors rolled open, red lights flooded the pre-dawn dark. Marcus Cole wasn't going home, he was going to work. The engine screamed through empty streets, tires biting wet asphalt as the city slept. Marcus sat in the jump seat, eyes forward, hands still. The noise around him, sirens, radio chatter, the diesel growl of the engine faded into background static. His mind was already inside the structure. Mapping exits, counting stairs, measuring risk. He had done this before. In places where the fires weren't accidents, when they turned onto Oakmont Drive, he saw the smoke first, thick and black, pouring from a second-floor window like something alive. Flames licked the edges of the frame, hungry and spreading. The mother was on the front lawn, screaming. "My daughter!" "She's still inside, please. She's only 6. Captain Rivera was already barking orders. Ladder team to the roof, hose line to the front, search and rescue, 2nd floor. Marcus grabbed his mask, his helmet, his axe. He didn't wait for the order. Rivera caught his eyes through the chaos. One nod. That was all Marcus needed. He moved through the front door, Terence behind him, hose team trailing. The heat hit them like a wall. Visibility dropped to nothing within seconds. Orange light flickered through smoke so thick it swallowed their flashlight beams. "Stay on my shoulder," Marcus said. His voice was calm. Level, not a trace of panic. They pushed up the stairs. Each step groaned under their weight. The fire was eating the house from the inside out. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him. Instinct, he threw out an arm, stopping Terence cold. "Left side is compromised. Stay right." They moved along the wall, door after door, empty, empty. Then Marcus heard it. A cough, weak, barely there. He followed the sound, shouldered open a bedroom door. The room was thick with smoke, the ceiling already buckling. In the corner, beneath a collapsed bookshelf, a small figure lay motionless, 6 years old. Blonde hair matted with ash. Eyes closed. Marcus dropped to his knees. He lifted the shelf with one hand, 200 pounds of oaken plaster, and pulled her free with the other. She wasn't breathing. He cleared her airway, positioned her head, gave 2 rescue breaths. Her chest rose, fell, rose again. She coughed, a thin, rattling sound, but alive. Marcus wrapped his turnout coat around her small body and lifted her against his chest. He turned toward the door just as a ceiling beam cracked above him. He didn't run. He stepped to the left, let the beam fall beside him, shielded her with his back as embers rained down. Then he moved, down the hall, down the stairs, through the smoke and heat and noise. He emerged through the front door into cold morning air. The mother collapsed at his feet, sobbing, reaching for her daughter. "She's breathing," Marcus said. "We need to transport now." The paramedics took over. Marcus climbed into the ambulance without being asked. He held the oxygen mask to the girl's face as the vehicle screamed toward St. Vincent Memorial. Her pulse was weak, thready, but it was there. "Stay with me," he said quietly. Not a command, a request. She did. The ambulance doors burst open at the trauma bay. The medical team swarmed. The girl was lifted onto a gurney and rushed inside. Marcus followed as far as the doors, then stopped. He stood in the hallway, ash in his lungs, soot on his face, his hands still steady. A nurse looked at him. "Are you injured?" "No." "Do you need anything?" Marcus shook his head. He walked outside, leaned against the side of the ambulance, breathed in the cold air. The news vans were already arriving. Cameras pointed at the trauma bay entrance. A reporter interviewed Captain Rivera. No one looked at Marcus. That was fine. He didn't do it for the cameras. He did it because the alarm sounded, because a child was trapped, because that was the job, and now it was done. The sun had crested the hospital rooftop, pale and sharp against the haze of lingering smoke. Marcus stood beside the ambulance, his back against the cold metal panel, watching the chaos in the distance. Fire crews were packing up. The news vans had migrated to the front entrance of St. Vincent Memorial, where the girl's mother was being interviewed. She was crying, thanking God, thanking the firefighters, thanking everyone. She didn't know Marcus's name, didn't need to. His radio crackled once, dispatch confirming what he already knew, shift change complete. Engine 7 returning to station. He was officially off duty. He should have gone home. Should have showered, eaten, slept for 10 hours. That was the protocol after a 24, but Marcus stayed. He needed a moment, one quiet breath before the world kept spinning. That was when the black SUV rolled into the lot. It didn't have lights, didn't have sirens, just a quiet engine and tinted windows that caught the morning glare. The vehicle stopped 30 feet from the ambulance. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, mid-40s, white, short-cropped hair, grey suit beneath a dark overcoat, a badge clipped to his belt. Federal. Marcus didn't move, didn't tense. His eyes tracked the man's hands, an old habit that never left. The man approached with purpose. His gaze swept over Marcus once, quickly, the way someone scans a file rather than a person. "You. What's your name?" Marcus straightened slowly. Marcus Cole, firefighter paramedic, Station 7. He reached for his department ID, clipped to his chest pocket. He held it out. Calm, cooperative. The man didn't take it, didn't look at it. That your rig? It belongs to the department. You the one who came in with the girl? Yes. A pause. The man's jaw tightened. Something shifted behind his eyes, suspicion settling into certainty. I'm Officer Daniel Reeves, United States Marshals Service. I'm going to need you to stay right where you are. Marcus kept his hands visible, his breathing even, his voice flat. Is there a problem, officer? Reeves studied him. Not his ID, not his badge, just his face. You match the description of a federal fugitive, armed robbery, assault on a federal officer. There's a warrant out of Virginia. Marcus blinked once. I've been on shift for 24 hours. I just pulled a child out of a fire. You can verify my location with dispatch. I'll verify what I need to verify. Reeves took a step closer. His hand drifted toward his hip, not drawing but ready. Turn around. Marcus didn't move. Sir, my department ID is in my hand. My badge number is 741. I'm a licensed paramedic with 12 years on the force. You can confirm all of this in 60 seconds. I said, turn around. A nurse appeared at the edge of the parking lot. Then another, a security guard, a janitor. Hospital staff drawn by the stillness of the confrontation. Marcus saw them watching. He saw Terrence step out of the returning engine, confusion spreading across his face. He saw the news cameras beginning to turn. And he saw Reeves standing there, badge gleaming, absolute certainty carved into his posture. This wasn't about verification. It never was. Marcus had seen this before, in traffic stops, in airports, in the quiet, institutional machinery that sorted people by the color of their skin before it ever checked their credentials. He had a choice. He could assert his rights, demand a supervisor, cite the law, or he could survive. He knew which one kept you breathing. Marcus lowered his ID. Slowly, he turned, placed his palms flat against the side of the ambulance, spread his feet. The metal was still warm from the engine. It smelled like smoke and antiseptic and something that used to feel like home. Now it felt like a wall. Behind him, Reeves stepped forward. The cuffs came out. The first cuff clicked around Marcus's left wrist. Cold steel, familiar weight. He had worn restraints before training exercises, hostage simulations, survival courses where the goal was to stay calm when everything told you to fight. This was not a simulation. Other hand, Reeves said. His voice was louder now, projecting, making sure everyone watching knew who was in control. Marcus brought his right hand behind his back. The second cuff clicked into place. He felt the pressure immediately, too tight, metal biting into bone. Standard intimidation. He catalogued it, noted it, filed it away, on the ground. Marcus hesitated, not out of defiance, out of calculation. He knew what happened to black men who moved too fast. He knew what happened to black men who moved too slow. The margin between compliance and threat was a razor's edge, and the man behind him held the blade. I said on the ground now. Marcus lowered himself to his knees, then forward, palms flat against the asphalt. Face turned to the side, cheek pressed against pavement still warm from the ambulance tires. The sky above him was pale blue, clear, almost peaceful. He heard the voices before he saw the faces. What are you doing? A nurse, Denise from the trauma team. He just saved a child. He's one of us. Ma'am, step back. Reeves didn't look at her. This is federal business. Federal business. He's a firefighter. I won't ask again. Marcus heard footsteps. More voices, hospital staff gathering at the edges. Security guards unsure whose side they were supposed to take. A doctor in a white coat. Phone already out recording. He didn't move. He knew how this looked. A black man face down on the ground. A white officer standing over him. Handcuffs, weapons, power. He had been here before. Different country, different uniform, same feeling. The weight of a system pressing down on his chest, telling him he didn't matter. That he was a threat, simply because he existed. But he wasn't in Kandahar now. He was in the parking lot of the hospital, where he had just delivered a dying child into the arms of doctors who brought her back to life. And still this. Terence appeared at the edge of his vision, eyes wide, fists clenched, looking like he was about to do something stupid. Marcus caught his gaze, held it, shook his head. Once, slowly, stand down. Terence's jaw tightened, but he stayed where he was. Reeves pulled Marcus to his feet with a grip on his elbow. The motion was rough, unnecessary, designed to remind him who held the power. Marcus said nothing. They walked toward the black SUV, every step measured, every breath controlled. Marcus's hands were cuffed behind him, his uniform streaked with ash, his boots still damp from the hose water. He passed the ambulance, he passed his crew. He passed the nurses and doctors who had worked beside him for years. No one stopped it. That was the part that would stay with him, not the cuffs, not the asphalt, not the badge or the gun or the voice barking orders. It was the silence, the way the world watched, recorded, posted, but did not intervene, because intervention meant risk, and risk was for people like Marcus. Just before he reached the SUV, a door burst open at the trauma bay entrance. A woman stumbled out, mid-30s, eyes red and swollen from crying, still wearing a hospital gown over her clothes, the girl's mother. She saw Marcus, saw the cuffs, saw the officer pushing him toward the vehicle. Wait, that's him. That's the man who saved my daughter. She ran toward them, bare feet slapping the pavement. A security guard caught her by the shoulders, held her back. He saved her life. What are you doing? Let him go. Reeves didn't even turn around. Ma'am, this is a federal matter. Return to the hospital. He's a hero. He carried her out of the fire. Marcus looked at her, just for a second. He didn't speak, didn't nod, didn't offer reassurance. He just looked. And then the SUV door opened, and a hand pressed down on his head, and he was pushed inside. The door slammed shut. The world outside became tinted glass and muffled sound. Marcus sat in the back seat, wrists aching, lungs still heavy with smoke. He had survived firefights, ambushes, 2 weeks in a collapsed building waiting for extraction. But this was different. This was his own country, and it had just treated him like the enemy. The holding cell was 12 feet by 10, concrete walls, steel bench, a single fluorescent light embedded in the ceiling behind a cage of wire mesh. No window, no clock, no way to measure time except by the rhythm of your own breathing. Marcus sat on the bench, back straight, hands resting on his knees. The cuffs were gone now, removed during processing. His fingerprints were in the system, his photograph taken, his belongings sealed in a plastic bag somewhere beyond the heavy door. They had given him nothing. No phone call, no explanation, no timeline, just this room, this light, this silence. He had been here before, not this cell, but ones like it. Smaller, darker, with dirt floors and walls that sweated in the heat. Kandahar province, summer of 2009, a patrol gone wrong, an ambush that split his squad in half, 2 days in a mud brick building waiting for extraction that might never come. He had survived that by counting. Breaths, heartbeats, seconds, minutes, hours. He started counting now. 1, 2, 3, 4, inhale, hold, exhale. The technique was simple, old, taught to him by a sergeant who didn't make it home. A man who had looked at Marcus with steady eyes and said, "Panic is a choice, stillness is a weapon." Marcus had carried those words through 3 combat tours, through the funerals, through the nights when the memories came uninvited. He carried them now. His mind drifted, not in chaos, in controlled release. He thought about the girl, the weight of her body in his arms, the way her chest had risen when he breathed into her lungs. She was alive. That was what mattered. He thought about his crew, Terence's face twisted with helpless rage. Captain Rivera, watching from the engine bay, jaw clenched but silent. He didn't blame them. There was nothing they could have done. The badge carried weight. The gun carried finality. In that moment, Marcus was alone, just like he had been alone in the rubble of that building half a world away. He thought about his mother, She had died 3 years before he enlisted. Cancer, slow and merciless. He had been 19, working 2 jobs, trying to keep up with her medical bills. She had never seen him in uniform, never seen the medals, never seen the man he became. But she had seen him afraid once, just once, after his father left, after the eviction notice, after the world had made it clear that no one was coming to save them. She had held his face in her hands and said, "You are not what they see, Marcus. You are what you do, remember that." He remembered. The door opened. Marcus didn't flinch, didn't look up. He waited. A guard stepped inside. Behind him, 2 men in suits. Federal agents, different from Reeves. Older, more measured. "Mr. Cole, come with us." Marcus rose, slowly. He walked toward the door without resistance. The hallway was long and lit the same pale color as the cell. His footsteps echoed against the concrete. He didn't know what came next. Interrogation, more waiting. Charges he didn't deserve, but he knew one thing. He had survived worse, and he would survive this, because stillness was a weapon, and Marcus Cole had never stopped counting. Chapter 6. The Record. Word count 650. The interrogation room was cleaner than the cell. A steel table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs on one side, one on the other. A mirrored window that Marcus knew was observation glass. He sat with his hands flat on the table, relaxed, visible, no sudden movements. The 2 agents sat across from him. Neither had introduced themselves. One was taking notes, the other was asking questions. "Let's go over this again. Where were you at approximately 5:15 this morning?" "Inside a burning structure, 4127 Oakmont Drive." "Doing what?" "Search and rescue. A 6-year-old girl was trapped on the 2nd floor, and after that, I rode with her in the ambulance to St. Vincent Memorial. Stayed with her until the trauma team took over. Then I stepped outside." The agent with the notepad didn't look up. "Convenient." Marcus said nothing. The other agent leaned forward. "You understand the seriousness of this situation, Mr. Cole. There's a federal warrant. For someone who isn't me." A pause, the agent's jaw tightened. "We'll determine that, then determine it. Call the fire department. Check the dispatch logs. Pull the hospital's security footage. I was on camera from the moment I walked through those doors." The agent exchanged a glance with his partner. Neither spoke. Marcus watched them. He had seen this before, men who had committed to a theory and were now searching for evidence to support it. The truth was secondary. The narrative came first. But Marcus also knew something they didn't: his record. The second agent left the room. Marcus didn't move. The first agent continued asking questions, redundant, circular, designed to catch inconsistencies. Marcus answered each one the same way. Calm, precise, unshakable. 15 minutes passed. The door opened again. The second agent stepped inside. His face was different now. Paler, tighter. He leaned down and whispered something to his partner. The first agent blinked, looked at Marcus, then back at the file now placed in front of him. He opened it. Marcus saw his own photograph. Military dress uniform, younger face, same eyes. The agent read silently, then again, then a third time. "Your former army." "Yes." "Ranger." "Yes." "2 combat tours, Afghanistan." "Yes." The agent turned a page. His hand trembled slightly. "Bronze Star, Purple Heart. 3 commendations for valor under fire." He paused. "And 6 pages of classified operations I can't access without calling Washington." Marcus didn't respond. The agent looked at him, really looked for the first time since the interrogation began. "You were saving a child's life an hour ago."
"Yes."
The room was silent. The agent closed the file. He stood. He didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge the mistake, didn't offer an explanation. He simply said, "Wait here," and then he left. Marcus sat alone in the room. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. The mirrored glass reflected nothing but his own stillness. He had been exonerated by a file, not by justice, not by decency, but by a record that proved he had bled for a country that still looked at him with suspicion. That was the cost of the uniform, the one he wore now and the one buried in his closet at home. It protected him. But it shouldn't have been necessary. The side door opened and Marcus stepped into blinding sunlight. He raised a hand to shield his eyes. The world outside the federal building was loud. Traffic, voices, the hum of a city that hadn't stopped for his absence. He didn't know how long he had been inside. 3 hours, maybe 4. Time moved differently in rooms without windows. A car idled at the curb, a grey sedan, government plates. A woman stood beside it. Mid-50s, dark suit, silver hair pulled back in a tight braid. Her posture was formal, but her eyes were soft. Behind her, Fire Chief Daniel Okonkwo waited. He was still in uniform. His expression was unreadable. The woman spoke first. "Mr. Cole, my name is Diane Holloway. I'm an attorney." Marcus didn't respond. He looked at Chief Okonkwo. The chief nodded once. "She's on our side." Marcus turned back to the woman. "How did you know I was here? Your crew made calls, a lot of them." She gestured toward the far end of the parking lot, where 2 local news vans had set up positions, cameras pointed in their direction. So did they. Marcus's chest tightened, not from fear, but from loss. He had spent years building invisibility, years choosing jobs that let him serve without spectacle. The fire department, the quiet shifts, the anonymous rescues. That was gone now. "I didn't ask for this, I know." Diane's voice was steady. "But it's here. And what happens next depends on the choices you make." Marcus looked at the cameras, at the reporters adjusting their microphones, at the world waiting to turn him into a symbol hero or victim, depending on the angle. He didn't want to be either. Chief Okonkwo stepped forward. "The department's behind you, Marcus. Whatever you need. What I need is to go home. You can, but—" The chief hesitated. "This isn't going away. The footage from the hospital is already online. People saw what happened. Then they saw a man get arrested for saving a child. They saw more than that." Diane opened the sedan's rear door. They saw a black firefighter treated like a criminal while he was still wearing the uniform. That matters to people. It should matter to you. Marcus didn't move. He thought about the girl, the mother, the look on Terrence's face as he was pushed into the SUV. He thought about the cell, the silence, the weight of cuffs on wrists that had carried a dying child to safety. He thought about the agents reading his file, the moment when his service became proof of his innocence, because his word alone wasn't enough. "How many people don't have a file like mine?" he asked quietly. "How many get pushed into that SUV and never come back out?" Diane met his eyes, more than you want to know. Marcus exhaled slowly. He looked at the cameras one more time. Then he got into the car. Diane closed the door and walked around to the driver's side. Chief Okonkwo leaned down, resting a hand on the window frame. "Take some time. The department isn't expecting you back until you're ready." Marcus nodded. "I'll be at the station tomorrow." The chief didn't argue. He knew better. The car pulled away from the curb. The news vans didn't follow, not yet. But Marcus knew they would find him eventually. They always did. He stared out the window as the city passed. The streets looked the same, the buildings, the people. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. He had walked into that hospital as a firefighter, a quiet man who saved lives and asked for nothing in return. He walked out as something else. A headline, a hashtag, a face on the screen. The silence he had protected for years was gone. Now the only question was what he would do with the noise. Diane Holloway's office was small, clean, a single window overlooking the city skyline. Shelves lined with legal texts and framed photographs of courtroom victories. Marcus sat across from her desk, hands resting on the armrests. He hadn't slept in 32 hours. His eyes burned, but his mind was sharp. Diane placed a folder in front of him, thick, tabbed, filled with paper. "This is the case." She opened it and began laying documents across the desk. Marcus recognized some of them: hospital security footage, dispatch logs, his personnel file from the fire department. Others were new: internal memos from the Marshal's service, a copy of the federal warrant with a photograph that looked nothing like him. A preliminary complaint drafted by Diane's team. "Fourth Amendment violation," she said. "Unlawful detainment without probable cause, racial profiling, excessive use of authority, false arrest, emotional distress. Marcus scanned the documents. His jaw tightened. They didn't even look at the warrant photo. No, they didn't. Diane's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Officer Reeves saw what he wanted to see, and the agency failed to train him otherwise. That's not just a personal failure. It's institutional, and institutions can be held accountable. Marcus didn't respond immediately. He turned a page, then another. What happens if I don't file? Diane leaned back in her chair. Nothing. You go back to work. The story fades. People forget. She paused. And the next time this happens to someone without your record, without your resources, they won't have a case to point to. No precedent, no consequence. Marcus looked at her. This isn't about me. It's about you, and it's about everyone who looks like you. Diane folded her hands on the desk. I've been doing this work for 20 years, Mr. Cole. I've seen men broken by what happened to you. Men who did nothing wrong but couldn't prove it. Men who spent years in cells because no one believed them. She pointed to the folder. Your record saved you. Your uniform saved you. But most people don't have that armor. If you file, if you fight, you give them something to stand on. Not a guarantee, but a foundation. Marcus stared at the paperwork. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. You are not what they see. You are what you do. He had spent his whole life doing, serving, saving, disappearing into the work and letting the work speak for itself. But silence had a cost, and the cost wasn't just his anymore. They'll offer a settlement, Diane continued. They always do. Quiet money. A confidential agreement. You sign, you stay silent, you move on. And if I don't sign, then we go to court. It takes longer, it's harder, it costs more, but it's public. And sometimes public is the only thing that makes people change. Marcus thought about the mother, the girl, the nurses who watched him get arrested and could do nothing. He thought about Terence, standing frozen, fists clenched, ordered to stay silent by a single shake of the head. He thought about the ones he couldn't save, the ones who never made it out of the cell, the ones whose names never became headlines because they didn't have medals pinned to their chests. Slowly, he picked up a pen. Where do I sign? Diane didn't smile, she didn't celebrate, she simply turned to the last page and pointed. Marcus signed his name. The pen felt heavy in his hand, heavier than any tool he had ever carried. But when he set it down, something shifted. Not resolution, not peace. Just the beginning of a fight he never asked for, but couldn't walk away from. 2 years passed. 2 years of motions and countermotions, discovery requests and depositions, legal briefs filed and refiled, delays designed to exhaust, tactics meant to frustrate. Marcus worked through all of it. He returned to Station 7 the day after he was released. He pulled shifts, answered calls, saved lives. The cameras eventually stopped following him. The headlines moved on, but the case didn't. Neither did he now. On a grey Tuesday morning, Marcus sat in a conference room on the 14th floor of a glass tower downtown. Diane was beside him. Across the table sat 3 attorneys representing the federal government and one man who refused to meet his eyes. Daniel Reeves. He looked older. The confidence Marcus remembered from the parking lot was gone. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his tie. His jaw was tight, his gaze fixed on the table. The lead defense attorney spoke first. Officer Reeves, please describe the events of the morning in question. Reeves cleared his throat. I was responding to a regional alert. A fugitive matching a specific description had been reported in the area. I observed the subject in the hospital parking lot and initiated contact. And what led you to believe the subject was the individual in question? General appearance, build, clothing. Did you examine the warrant photograph prior to the stop? A pause, not in detail. Marcus watched. He didn't speak, didn't shift, didn't blink. The defense attorney continued. Did the subject resist? No. Did he comply with your instructions? Yes. Did he provide identification? Reeves hesitated. His eyes flicked toward Marcus for the first time, then away. He offered it. I declined to review it at that moment. Why? Silence. Diane leaned forward. I'll repeat the question. Why did you decline to review identification offered voluntarily by a uniformed firefighter who stated he had just completed a rescue operation? Reeves didn't answer. The lead defense attorney intervened. Officer Reeves exercised field discretion based on his training and the perceived threat level. Perceived threat level. Diane's voice was quiet, precise. Mr. Cole was wearing a fire department uniform. He was standing beside an ambulance. He had smoke residue on his clothing and face. He was holding his departmental ID. At what point did he present a threat? No response. Diane turned to Marcus. Mr. Cole, you've heard Officer Reeves's account. Would you like to respond? Marcus took a breath, let it out slowly. I've been asked many times over the past 2 years why I didn't resist, why I complied, why I got on the ground when I knew I had done nothing wrong. He paused. The room was silent. The answer is simple. I was trained to survive. He looked at Reeves, not with anger, not with hatred, just with the calm clarity of a man who had made peace with his own choices. I spent 9 years in the army, 2 combat tours. I've been ambushed, captured, held in conditions you can't imagine. I know what it means to be powerless, and I know what it costs to fight when the odds are stacked against you. He folded his hands on the table. That morning, I made a choice. I could have asserted my rights, demanded a supervisor, cited the Constitution. But I've seen what happens to black men who assert their rights in front of armed officers who have already made up their minds. I've seen the funerals. Reeves's face was pale now, his hands pressed flat against the table. So I got on the ground. I let myself be cuffed. I protected my life, and I trusted that eventually the truth would come out, not because the system is fair, but because I had witnesses, I had a record, I had a file. He leaned forward slightly. Most people don't. Most people who look like me, who get stopped the way I was stopped, don't walk out of that building. They don't get lawyers, they don't get depositions. They disappear into a system that never bothered to check if they were innocent. Diane asked the final question. Mr. Cole, if you could go back to that morning, would you do anything differently? Marcus looked at Reeves one last time. I would save the girl again every time. The room was silent. The court reporter's fingers stilled on the keys. Reeves looked down. He didn't speak for the rest of the session, and Marcus Cole sat in his chair, calm, still unbroken, and waited for justice. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon. Marcus sat in the back of the courtroom as the jury foreman stood. He didn't lean forward, didn't clench his fists, didn't hold his breath. He had already survived. The number was secondary. We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Marcus Cole, on all counts. A murmur swept through the room. Diane placed a hand on his arm, firm, reassuring. We award compensatory and punitive damages in the amount of $9,800,000, $9,808,000, the largest civil rights settlement in the district's history. The courtroom erupted. Journalists rushed for the doors. Camera flashes burst through the windows from the hallway. Phones buzzed with breaking news alerts. Marcus didn't move. He sat in his chair, hands resting on his knees, and looked at the empty seat across the aisle where Daniel Reeves had sat throughout the trial. Reeves wasn't there today. He had resigned 3 months ago. Quietly. No press release, no statement, just an empty desk and a name removed from the roster. Marcus didn't feel satisfaction. He didn't feel vindication. He felt tired. Diane leaned close. There are cameras outside. Reporters want a statement. Marcus shook his head. I have nothing to say. He stood, walked to the side exit, pushed through the door before anyone could stop him. The hallway was empty. His footsteps echoed against the marble. He drove to Station 7. The engine bay was quiet when he arrived. Shift change in 20 minutes. The crew was in the kitchen, eating, talking, laughing at something Marcus didn't hear. He walked to his locker, opened it. The photograph was still there. 4 men in desert fatigues, the dog tags behind it, catching the light. He pulled on his gear, boots, coat, helmet. He sat down at the kitchen table, alone. Terence walked in, stopped when he saw Marcus. You're here. I'm here. The news said. I know. Terence hesitated, then sat down across from him. What happens now? Marcus looked out the window. The sun was setting behind the city skyline, casting long shadows across the bay floor. "Same thing that always happens. The alarm sounds, we respond, we do the job." Terence nodded slowly. He didn't ask about the money, didn't ask about the trial, didn't ask about justice or victory, or what any of it meant. He just sat there, quiet, present. The alarm rang. 3 long tones. The dispatch voice crackled through the speakers. "Engine 7, Ladder 7. Medical emergency 2501 Riverside Drive." Marcus stood, grabbed his helmet. Terence followed. They climbed into the engine. The bay doors rolled open. The lights turned on, red and white against the fading sky. Marcus Cole wasn't a headline. He wasn't a symbol. He wasn't $9.8 million. He was a firefighter, and his shift had just started.